Hello, my name is Andy Lee, and I'm here to talk to you about Lambert-Eaton Myasthenic Syndrome, LEMS. The program is, of course, sponsored by Catalyst Pharmaceuticals, and I am being compensated for presenting, but I am not an employee of Catalyst. And this presentation content is consistent with all applicable FDA requirements and is not intended for continuing education credit for healthcare professionals. I want to talk about the agent that can be used for treatment, both its mechanism of action, but also efficacy, safety, and titration. And the agent is called amifampridine. Amifampridine is FIRDAPSE. So if you look at symptomatic therapies for LEMS, amifampridine is an agent that can increase the availability of acetylcholine, and this is in contrast to inhibiting degradation of acetylcholine in the neuromuscular junction with pyridostigmine. In a double-blind, randomized controlled clinical trial, which is our best available data, comparing the efficacy of amifampridine and pyridostigmine, which is our conventional treatment for myasthenia gravis, in patients with LEMS, only the amifampridine produced consistent, significant improvements in muscle strength and the CMAP, the compound muscle action potential amplitudes. And clinical data also suggests that the cholinesterase inhibitors like pyridostigmine are just not as effective for long-term treatment of patients with LEMS. Immunomodulatory therapy is recommended because it's an antibody-mediated disorder and is recommended for both flares or when symptomatic treatment with amifampridine is not sufficient. There is some limited clinical data to suggest that oral and infusion therapy with immunomodulatory therapies may also provide some short-term benefit in adult patients with LEMS. And the most important thing, anti-cancer therapy, treat the cancer, find the cancer, and even though it's usually small cell lung carcinoma, it does not have to be small cell carcinoma. And in one study of 16 patients treated with 3,4-diaminopyridine, which is amifampridine, this was continued in conjunction with anti-neoplastic therapy, and so you're going to do both. In terms of the indications for FIRDAPSE, which is a potassium channel blocker, it is indicated for the treatment of Lambert-Eaton Myasthenic Syndrome in both adults and in children over age 6. FIRDAPSE, of course, is contraindicated in patients with a history of seizure or hypersensitivity to the drug. And the main adverse reactions, the most common ones, are paresthesias, upper respiratory tract infection, abdominal pain, nausea, diarrhea, headache, elevated liver function studies, back pain, hypertension, and muscle spasms. You can report suspected adverse reactions by contacting Catalyst Pharmaceuticals at the number listed. Amifampridine FIRDAPSE is the first and only FDA-approved evidence-based therapy for LEMS and is indicated for use in adults and kids over age 6. The MOA, the mechanism of action of amifampridine, FIRDAPSE, is it leads to an increase in acetylcholine release during the action potential by targeting the source of neuromuscular dysfunction in LEMS. That is the presynaptic motor neuron. So in patients with LEMS, the autoantibodies are targeting the voltage-gated calcium channel, the VGCC, in the presynaptic neuron, that reduces the calcium influx during the action potential, and therefore presynaptic voltage-gated potassium channels, which are open and help terminate the action potential, can be blocked by FIRDAPSE, which is the amifampridine, resulting in a prolonged calcium influx, and that increased calcium influx allows for better and more acetylcholine transmission across the neuromuscular junction, and it is that increased acetylcholine signaling that is able to restore muscle contraction and restore muscle strength, which is the main thing that the patients are being affected by. So if you look at the phase 3 study, which was a withdrawal study design, 2 randomized, multi-center, double-masked, placebo-controlled trials, 64 enrolled adult patients with LEMS, aged 21 to 88 years of age. And due to the nature of LEMS, it's very difficult to conduct a parallel group placebo-controlled trial for these patients who are going to be exposed to placebo for a prolonged period of time. So if you look at the double-blind treatment period, baseline efficacy assessments and final assessments using standardized instruments. So in the phase 3 clinical trial, study 1 and study 2, the demographics, as you would expect, median age in the 50s, 61% female, 80 and 90% Caucasian, and 16% of the cohort had cancer in study 1, and 23% of the LEMS patients had cancer in study 2. The primary endpoints were QMG, which is a quantitative myasthenia gravis score, and SGI, which is a subjective global impression score. So if you look at the primary endpoints, day 0 to the end of discontinuation of drug, day 14, these are the 2 phase 3 clinical trials. And what you're looking at as the primary endpoint is maintaining muscle strength. So if you look at the quantitative myasthenia gravis scores during the MAST period in these 2 phase 3 randomized withdrawal studies, you can see study 1, total change in quantitative myasthenia gravis score from baseline to day 14, FIRDAPSE versus placebo. Total quantitative myasthenia gravis score, FIRDAPSE versus placebo. You can see that the FIRDAPSE treated patients were able to maintain their muscle strength against placebo, which showed a significant continued decline in muscle strength, as would be expected. If you look at co-endpoint number 2, which is patients' perception of well-being, same type of result for subject global impression scores during the MAST period in 2 separate phase 3 randomized trials. FIRDAPSE treated patients reported a better sense of well-being compared to placebo-treated patients when you look at less versus greater dissatisfaction. The placebo patients did worse. And what did the clinicians think about the patient's well-being? Again, in the same 2 phase 3 trials, there was a statistically significant improvement in the clinical global impression of improvement by the clinicians compared against placebo in both study 1 and in study 2. In study 2, Amifampridine maintained functional mobility in the phase 3 clinical trial, and the proportion of patients with greater than 20% increase in the triple timed up and go 3-tug test, the average time was higher in the placebo group compared to the treated group with Amifampridine. And you can see here the 3-tug average time exploratory endpoint. FIRDAPSE, 7.7%. That's the percentage of patients with a greater than 20% increase in their 3-tug time at day 4, compared with 61% of placebo. The 3-tug, as you know, is the functional mobility test that requires a patient to stand up from a straight-backed armchair, walk 3 meters, turn around, walk back, and sit down in the chair. And individuals performed the test 3 consecutive times without a pause, and the final measurement was the average time required to complete each of the 3 repetitions. So based on literature reports, a significant change in gait for a similar walk test is an increase in time of more than 20%, and that was the endpoint in the phase 3 trial for maintaining functional mobility, FIRDAPSE against placebo. So in terms of safety and tolerability, the clinical studies have shown that FIRDAPSE is well tolerated. Most of the reported adverse events in these studies were mild to moderate, and you can see the listing here: paresthesias, upper respiratory tract infection, abdominal pain, nausea, diarrhea, headache, elevated LFTs, back pain, hypertension, and muscle spasm. There was also some patients with dizziness, asthenia, muscular weakness, pain in the extremity, and cataract, and much less common, constipation, bronchitis, fall, and lymphadenopathy. The main one we're worried about, however, is seizure, and there were no seizures reported. There was no evidence of serious ECG abnormality, including prolonged QT intervals, or any serious laboratory abnormalities in the phase 3 clinical trials, and no new safety signals were identified from the review of the blinded clinical study data, the post-marketing safety data, or from the expanded access program from the LEMS disease registry. And finally, titration, which is the dosing of 10 milligrams of amifampridine for patients weighing greater than or equal to 45 kilos. At start, 15 to 30 mg per kg in divided doses, 3 to 5 times per day is the recommended dose. Then we're going to titrate up plus 5 milligrams every day over the next 3 to 4 days, and then escalate as needed up to a maximum of 100 milligrams per day. So in patients who have had renal or hepatic impairment or are known to be poor metabolizers, and that is N-acetyltransferase 2, NAT2, the starting dose for the FIRDAPSE should probably be the lowest recommended dose taken orally in divided doses. That's 15 milligrams per day in adults. And in children weighing 45 kilograms or more, 5 milligrams daily for patients weighing less than 45 kilograms. And if you look about how the NAT2, the N-acetyltransferase 2, is an acetylating enzyme that can change the metabolism of some drugs, including amifampridine. The NAT2 gene results in rapid, intermediate, or slow acetylators, and therefore variants in this NAT2 can affect how patients metabolize and respond to these drugs, including FIRDAPSE. There's also a pregnancy registry, and in conjunction with the FDA, Catalyst has created a registry to collect information about the safety of FIRDAPSE use in pregnancy. And patients with LEMS, even those not taking the FIRDAPSE, can enroll. And so I would encourage you to enroll any eligible patients as soon as you learn that they are pregnant.